Welcome to Risky Thoughts with Rob and Roy.
I'm Rob.
And I'm Roy. And I want to welcome you guys all back for another episode of Risky Thoughts. Exciting news. We had our first interview with our first interviewee.
Yes.
And his name was Z, right? I didn't mean to rhyme there. But sorry. It was really good. We touched upon some really deep topics regarding like mental illness, and it's just a really fruitful night with a friend, and I want you guys to take a look into it. It will be on YouTube, all right, and it's not out yet, and we don't want to compromise what me and Rob are doing here. Just our solo conversations where we're kind of exploring the things that grind our gears or whatever thought we have over the week, the current state of the world or whatever it is, right? So we don't want to like really jeopardize that experience.
Yeah, and the interview was sort of in line with our original vision of where we wanted to go with the podcasting and the whole discussing risky thoughts, is that we wanted to bring in people from all kinds of walks of life, whether you were rich, poor, working, not working, student, parent. The idea was sort of to understand the different perspectives on life as we talk to these different people, and maybe find some common threads between everybody's interests. Even if you're a lawyer, you're a janitor, whatever you do, we kind of wanted to understand where everybody was sort of at, what their ambitions were, what they perceived as their values in life, that kind of stuff. So
yeah,
it was kind of exciting for sure. And the individual that we interviewed had gone through some stuff, basically, let's put it that way, in the last year. It like Roy said, it does touch on mental illness, and he kind of shared his story, which we are tremendously grateful for.
Yeah, very brave.
Yeah, and we're looking forward to having more of those types of discussions
100%.
With more strangers. So,
and like I was saying before, like I don't necessarily want to interview like celebrities and things like that. People who are I don't care about how to spend $1 billion. I don't care about how to make a Tesla. Like, you know what I mean? I don't. I think there's more value in us.
Yeah, the details in the psychology of the individual.
Just a regular individual. I think they're like, just living is hard enough. Like, okay, getting a rocket ship to Mars and populating it. Okay, obviously I'm alluding to Elon Musk or anybody else, Jeff Bezos. I don't care about AI. I can't even program. Like, that doesn't matter to me, right? Like, it's just, there's no value for me. And I think I've always gotten value from just talking to regular people. Yeah. So I want to have more regular people on, and me and Rob are going to do our thing and try to extract their story for the rest of us, right?
Yeah, it's not to say that we're not willing to interview people of
100%
of authority.
Oh, no, of course.
Celebrity status, if it ever gets that one day. But the idea is just to understand them as a person, not them as the figure that you know them of in sort of the public eye.
100%. Right? I did not mean that, Muskie. If you're listening to us, please, you're welcome to come on. I'm just kidding. Okay, so, to get into what we're going to talk about today, it's it's that time of the year where people start to lock down and stay inside. I'm saying that because we did it last year. We're going to do it this year. Who knows? We might have to do it again sometime.
Well, even from just like a natural cycle of the annual routine,
fuck Christmas.
Like, post-holiday moods are like all-time lows for the year, right? Weather's shitty.
So it's like this time we didn't even have a holiday, and now we have a lockdown. So
we're at all-time lows for sure.
100%. And I think it comes with new challenges that we kind of want to really explore here. In the old world, right? We had all these distractions that we used to kind of take part in, going to bars, hanging out, going on dates, hanging with family,
going on the beach.
Oh yeah,
zip lining, anything, basically anything.
Back in the day, we used to go to the beach and have Christmas.
Not to say that's never going to happen again or it's impossible, but
it's serious because it's like we're now in a deep fucking at least hopefully we didn't have to spend that much money this year. Yeah, right. You know what I mean? But wait a minute. We lost our jobs, so we can't have no money to spend.
Yeah.
So there has to be some answer. There has to be some way that we're all coping with this, with our lives, right? Yeah. One fruitful kind of comment that we were able to kind of uncover, Z was telling us after his break he was rethinking like the personality he was in the past, like the things he used to do, what he was into, and he's trying to figure out, like, he was a guru. Zhang's a guru. I call him Zhang,
He's
right?
a shaman.
So, yeah, he's a shaman. As he's that person that you go to and he gives you that advice to get things done. We only started this project from advice that he told us, right? But so many times people like that do not follow their own advice, right? And but anyways, he's going through a thing where he thought he's maybe like a fraud of some sort, right? He's preaching all this stuff, and he said candidly, he's just like, to what degree was my old personality a coping mechanism, right? It's like all of it. Like, we are all going to die, so we gotta take our minds off of it. And what we see outside, and this is, Rob definitely said this, is the why answer, right? Of what why we're doing all this stuff, right?
Yeah, why we live, why we choose to wake up in the morning, all of that.
100%.
And it's not to make this sound like this is a gloomy discussion. I don't want people to understand what we're saying now as like, oh my God, we're all gonna die. Like, what are we doing? All this is mean. No, like that's not at all the message here. But sort of the crux of our conversation during the interview, we did touch upon this idea of the why, and we've even talked about a lot of the stuff that we're mentioning now in previous podcasts with respect to COVID and like how the current state of the world is, and how depression is sort of an up and coming thing.
Right.
So these have all been discussed before. However, the idea is for us to sort of explore the unique coping mechanisms that perhaps people may pursue in moments of when they feel sort of isolated or they don't have alternative methods of distracting themselves from the inevitable.
Okay, so one big coping mechanism that I used to be into pre-COVID was investing. Like for 4 years before COVID, I was really interested in stocks, and not so much stocks, just like how companies operate and how they create value for people. Like, on this podcast, we're trying to create value in whatever it is. And when COVID hit, we saw a drastic increase in like people trading stocks, getting into the stock market. Now, this is a coping mechanism that I want to kind of really warn and caution people, because this is very, very, very close to like some form of gambling.
Well, it is gambling. There's anytime you buy a stock, you are gambling.
Yeah,
you are risking your money based on the performance of the stock.
100%.
So it is definitely gambling. And just to sort of preclude what you're saying now, I do want to introduce the idea of like, yes, for sure that we are using this analogy of the newer generation now getting into this online trading sort of market space.
Yeah.
And it is being assisted as well with the functionality of the new apps that are out there that allow you to do the trading on your cell phone, like Wealthsimple, Robinhood, etc. And 100%, it is to be treated as seriously as you possibly can. If you're a parent out there and you have a son or a daughter that's in an age range where it is legal for them to make trades, keep an eye out for it. It is extremely
well. And the reason for that is like half of us don't even as much as like I had my picks. Like for example, whatever, I picked a good company, right? And I'm also in Bitcoin, right? And I don't fully understand what's going to happen with Bitcoin, right? And it's just like people are putting their whole paycheck and all that into these things, and they don't know where it's necessarily going to go. Right now it's booming, right? But at some point you could lose your shirt, right? And like, but then people decide to make their losses up, and you get that whole kind of crapshoot effect, right? Of
there's certainly like it's an adrenaline rush, right? And you get caught up in that sort of emotional high you get when you do these things. But before we sort of really explore what gambling looks like, or even sticking on the line of trading, specifically, we open this by immediately jumping into the idea that people are using trading as a mechanism to cope.
Yeah.
And I think what I wanted to add in before we got here is just, and sorry to go back in time here, guys, but I just wanted to add in that like there are other forms of there are other forms to which you can cope with.
Oh, 100%.
Video games,
Yes,
that kind of
yes,
stuff.
absolutely.
Baking. My wife got into baking heavily because
Yeah.
of the pandemic lockdowns.
Yeah.
And it's normal. It's healthy to look for an opportunity.
Yeah, so I guess we just kind of want to identify, like, in our opinion, what are the coping mechanisms to be very kind of cautious of, right? And like, okay, you brought up a good one. Like, I was, for those 2 years of my life where I was just doing nothing, like right out of university, just nothing. Every day I was playing a game called World of Warcraft. You know what I mean? I was playing a game called World of Warcraft. And for those of you who don't fully understand, like, the gaming world, it's kind of the last sanctuary for men, right? Now, I know, like, there's been this social justice warriors and people are trying to reform gamers and Gamergate. I don't know if you heard of that. They're trying to, but they've tried, but they failed because, like, games are toxic as shit.
Like, you have to go in with the expectation of being trolled.
You're getting trolled, getting abused.
Yeah.
Like, it's not right. You know what I mean? But even that industry is slowly changing. But, anyways, World of Warcraft, I think, just so recently, there's nothing to do anymore. So, like, don't judge me. I did dabble with the new expansion of World of Warcraft.
Yeah, and I'm still playing Counter-Strike Go, which is a game that I played when I was 14.
Well, what do we do?
Well, the whole like underlying principle behind why we play the games and the reason that we even start trading stocks or doing these types of activities is that life is difficult.
Yeah.
Life has challenges that people necessarily don't want to face.
No.
And it's very easy to go and play a video game because when you die in a video game or when you fail in a video game, you can just start again. And it's a good place to sort of release tension and stress because you can go there and you can be free of responsibility, free of everything. And that's why they are dangerous, just like stock market trading and other forms of gambling.
Yeah.
These are places and things that you do to preoccupy your mind so that you are essentially mindless with respect to the real world.
Yeah.
Right? And now I kind of want to jump back into trading now that we've sort of given that preamble with respect to what this is all about and why video games and stock markets are alike.
So let's clear it out again. So they're coping. Like, why do you think they're...
Well, because people need something to preoccupy their mind.
Right.
And what better way to preoccupy your mind with something that has no consequences?
Right.
Or perceivably has no consequences anyways.
So what are some other things like...
Well, like I said, my wife started baking. You can pick up knitting if you want. I don't know. You can do something where your mind is occupied with an activity, be it a physical one, a mental one, it doesn't really matter. But the objective here is to make sure that your mind is not thinking about some of the inevitable realities of our lives, which is that we're going to die.
I think that's... So I think just before the idea of, like, dying, there's, like, the idea of yourself. Like, we externally... For example, half the stuff that they're posting online on Instagram... Because me and you are fresh to Instagram, right?
Yeah, well, I've been on it for a long time, but I'm more active now, yes.
Now I'm a little bit more active with the whole, like, Instagram stuff. It's kind of cool, right? But, I see a lot of posts. It's just like they're taking issue with certain causes and stuff like that. And it's just like, there's so many causes out there, right? And, like, I honestly think it's just like, it's just people coping.
Yeah, it is.
It's just people coping. It's just people getting angry about some certain issue. Oh, men are this and men are that. And, women are this and women are that. And, like, there's, these people are trying to take our jobs. Donald Trump's obviously exploiting all those things. But in reality, it's like the main thing that everyone's really trying to avoid. And with this whole lockdown, it's like why we instantly found trading and when we instantly found video games when things started slowing down. It's like we don't want to deal with ourselves. Like That's the right. messiness, the fucked up nature of ourself, of how so much cognitive dissonance is occurring, and we really don't want to fix ourselves. Like, honestly, spend that energy on yourself. Yeah,
I 100% agree with this. Can you just explain cognitive dissonance to the listeners? I don't think you have in the past. You've used the term before.
Right.
So just sort of explain the idea behind cognitive dissonance.
Okay. I'm not really good at definitions, but I'm going to give it a shot here. So, there's, let's just say you have, something about a topic, right? Like me and Rob are preaching, like, and here's one, right? I'll tell you one. It's a natural thing, right? But we have to be mindful of it. We're like, yeah, you have to fix yourself, and that's the main thing. But like, I smoke cigarettes.
Right.
There's a cognitive dissonance there. That's gonna kill me.
Yes.
That's gonna end my life quicker.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So,
and yet you continue to do. That's exactly.
And
correct.
I still continue to do it,
perfect.
right? It's just like, oh, we're we have to help the poor people, and like they're.
But
just,
yet you walk by the homeless.
And you're
down
walking.
the street.
If you actually went downtown and you walked and you saw how many people will walk past someone who needs help. So we're out on this thing talking about, and people are, we have to help these people, help these people, help these people. It's just like, but there's so many people who need to be helped that I'm watching the entire society. There's a quote we looked at last night. It was by Viktor Frankl once again, and we're trying to really figure this one out because we want to get a proper photograph for the picture. And it was a abnormal reaction to an abnormal environment is a normal reaction.
That's correct.
Right? So walking by these people is a very abnormal thing. To walk by someone who needs help. Your brother, you're sharing the same genetic code, we're the same species, and we're just walking by, and this idea that we watch on movies all the time, like no one gets left behind. It's like, bitch, all these people are getting left behind.
This cognitive dissonance is making
right, and look at that cognitive dissonance, and we're filled with it.
Yeah, and
to the brim.
The funny thing about the example of the homeless guy, or someone in need, we shouldn't say necessarily a homeless person, is that like if you were to take that scenario, if you were to take the individuals walking by the person in need off the street and you were to put them into a room where it was a much more personal environment,
yeah,
I guarantee you the reactions would be a little bit different. Right. See, it's funny because the context is what this is all about, and that's where I see that quote sort of coming from, yeah. Right? Because it's talking about an abnormal reaction in an abnormal setting,
yeah,
right? And so, like, okay, what is that abnormal setting really? And so, for the example that you're giving with respect to walking by a fellow human and just completely disregarding it as if it's normal, like that is an abnormal reaction given a particular context, but people will accept it as normal. In the environment that we have today in society, right?
So the origins of that quote was, we're definitely looking a lot into Viktor Frankl. We're trying to digest the information correctly. You know what I mean? So we're really kind of out, not trying to take it for face value and trying to really get deep. For example, somebody in your camp, right, the concentration camp, died, and the guy just gets up, pulls him out, takes him to the rest of the bodies, dumps him, goes back to sleep.
Yeah, like that's not normal. Right?
That's not normal.
But given the circumstances.
But the system, and then this is why I actually, that was a bit of a Freudian slip there. Like the system is abnormal. Like yes. What we're living in and is abnormal. This whole lockdown, this whole, this meritocracy and all, whatever it is. I'm obviously I'm invoking a lot of words here, but we will start to build upon these ideas. But, just the productivity, that's essentially that homeless person does have no productivity,
right? And therefore they're
meaningless, and that's the normal reaction.
That's correct. Right? So we definitely went off on a decent tangent on this one.
Yeah, I'd say it's decent.
So, not to make such an abrupt segue back to the trading world, but this idea now that people are going and risking their savings and risking their earnings in the stock market would normally be considered abnormal. But given the circumstances and given the fact that there's nowhere else for your money to really go because you can't go out and spend it in the world, it's kind of considered to be a normal reaction nowadays, right? Like you can go online and the number of YouTube videos with day traders and self-made millionaires and self-made what they call professional traders,
right?
Like is insane. It's off the charts. And I mean, it's being considered normal now. Like if I walk down the street and I meet someone that's my age in their 30s, even their 20s, and I ask them, "Oh, have you ever played the stock market?" It's almost getting to a point now where it's like, "What do you mean you don't play the stock market?" Yeah. Like everyone is getting into it.
Yeah.
And so this is an abnormal situation, and the reality is that these people, including myself and yourself, we've participated in this.
Oh yeah.
We're walking into these territories that are completely unknown to us.
Mm-hmm.
It's known to me, and I'll get into that
Yeah.
now. We'll take this opportunity to sort of tell my story on this. But people are walking into danger and they don't even realize it.
Right. And so I just want to kind of just freeze right there for a second. I think, just to kind of really get that mindfulness going, is just like, are you good at math? Like, I'm not trying to I'm not, can you do a derivation of like even a square or a circle? And then, but yet people are talking like they know exactly where, these companies are going, right? But that company has a balance sheet, and those are very hard to interpret. And you can do math of where you're projecting things are going to go, but investing, you can't invest based on like some idea of like, yeah, Elon Musk is going to take it. I'm not saying I actually believe in Tesla, so okay, that's aside. But there's a lot of other companies, a lot of these traders telling you stuff, and it's just, you need to have the literacy and you have to have the understanding before actually putting that money in. And this is where we're getting this whole like the bullshit. Like people are taking advantage of vulnerable people. But anyways, so continue on with your point.
100%, man. Yeah. And like this idea that people are dropping large sums of money into something that they don't really understand is exactly what I'm talking about by walking themselves into danger.
Because everyone else is doing it.
And the part that they really don't see coming is that they're getting high off of this.
Yes.
Right? And this is where I want to sort of now digress into my story. Yeah. And like why we chose this sort of discussion for today.
Yes, right.
Is that, we've been talking recently amongst you and I off air, and I always have had the inclination of wanting to tell personal stories. And I thought I really, really want to bring out something from my past. Mm-hmm. And it's a personal story. There are elements of this that I'm not, necessarily willing to share with the world, but I will, because I've just come to terms with the reality of my past. So, and for anyone who is listening that is potentially going to be, for lack of a better term, triggered in discussions relating to mental health, addiction, gambling, that kind of stuff, now would be a good time to not listen.
Yeah.
I hate using the term triggered just because I'm not a big fan of that
100%
term. But anyways, it is something that I did want to sort of open with. Now, the reason why I feel like I'm able to really articulate where this path is leading for a lot of people that are unfamiliar with the domain of gambling is because obviously I've walked that line, right? So when I was a young teenager, I had started playing cards with some friends in high school, like small stuff. We've all done that, playing for quarters, playing for dollars, and it was nothing. It was not a big deal. Now, the dangerous part was that I would have considered myself to have been above average intelligence. And I thought that's going to give me an edge in playing these games because games usually require intellect to succeed in them or to be better at them. So I thought, oh yeah, this is a no-brainer. I'm going to win this for sure. And so I started doing it, and there was a little bit of winning, a little bit of losing. Didn't really matter. But what I didn't see coming and what happened and what developed over time was an addiction to the highs and lows that comes along with winning and losing. And that's got nothing to do with my intelligence. I could have been the smartest person in the world. I could have won every single game. But the part that wouldn't go away is the fact that I am getting high off of that. And it's not really known that there is like this hidden danger in these highs that you get. It's kind of the same reason why there's addictions to social media today. People don't understand or see that, right? And that's a whole nother ball of wax, but it is relatively similar in character to what we're discussing. And what I just want to say is, look, I started my gambling career when I was 14 years old. By the time I hit 20, I was in real danger. I had really started making very, very bad decisions that I thought I had under control. And it's funny because that's a 6-year window, and you would think, how did you not realize that you're making bad decisions over that 6-year period of time? It's a long time. Well, you don't see it. And even if you see it, you still think there's a part of you that's always like, well, I'll find an excuse to make it okay. Yeah. I'll find a way out of this. Yeah. And so, my gambling had evolved from playing with friends in school to starting to play online poker because it had just come out at the time, to starting to play at casinos, to starting to gamble in underground social clubs. Right. I don't know what they're actually called, but they're basically social clubs. And so, I got heavily involved in that industry. I got heavily involved in the poker scene, the slot machines that were out there, playing card games called like Rummy, Deuces. There's a whole, like, there's so many games, but they all do the same thing. They all fill your high. And, you know, the escalation of the monetary values of what I was gambling was insignificant because it didn't matter. I just wanted to chase the high. And just like the people who get high off of heroin or cocaine or anything like that, you need more and more and more to get you high, right? You don't feel the appeal unless you get that high. And so, you know, that whole world caught me way off guard. And for being someone who I considered to still be a reasonably intelligent person, like looking back on this, I had wasted 10 to 12 years to 15 years. I don't even know how long I was gambling for aggressively. I wasted all those years. I'm not even upset about the money. I'm upset about the fact that I wasted my effort and my time that could have been spent towards doing much more productive things for people in my life. I burned so many relationships. And that's the stuff that, again, is hidden. Nobody realizes it's coming. And so you go onto this trading platform that everyone is posting. Yeah, go on. You're going to make all kinds of money trading stocks. Tesla's doing well. And you know what? Congratulations. If you made some money, I'm happy for you.
Yeah.
But beware that as fast as you make it, you can lose it. And the reality is every gambling mechanism always has an edge built in for the house.
Yeah.
So if you're going to a casino, everybody knows the house always wins. That's a pretty common saying. What people don't understand is when you're trading, that is still there, guys. You're still trading and paying commission fees to a bank or paying commission fees to a trading platform. If you trade options, which is a much more aggressive and riskier way of gambling with the stock market, you're paying commissions. Like you are paying somebody to take a risk. So you are always paying some premium to what they consider, you know, the proverbial house.
Yeah.
And like it's a losing proposition always. Even from a simple math perspective, it is a losing proposition. If you add in the fact that there's psychological elements that you're going to be, you know, you're going to fall victim to, you may become an addict. These are really going to make it a tremendous losing proposition for you. But even if those don't happen, it's still a losing proposition, guys.
Yeah.
Anytime that you're playing with risk and money, it is dangerous. And I just wanted to take the time on this particular episode to really highlight those dangers, like, and I hope that anybody out there listening to this that is potentially involved in that sphere, like, be cautious, be aware of the risks that are involved. And
so I kind of want to even give like the listeners an understanding. So I'm going to kind of transpose like this idea that we've been slowly alluding to, the cycles, right, onto your story. You know what I mean? So you know, there's obviously these periods of highs and lows, and you know, you become, you know, you almost become manic, right? Where you actually believe like the numbers are going to go in a certain way, or you start to develop a belief, right? Almost like a faith in this play, right? But after it doesn't come true, right? And now you owe people or whatever, and people are trying to, you know, hunt you down or whatever the situation for, and this is a rampant problem with everything across the board with regards to any sort of addiction or a coping mechanism. It's and the coping mechanism, it's only becomes dangerous when a bubble starts to kind of like form, you know, and so when you did kind of like come down for this, like what did that kind of like feel like, and you know, what did that feel like, and what did that look like, so that other people can kind of see what the signs are, so then maybe people can go out and try to seek help. You know?
So I'll go through those motions sort of as best I can. I do want to start by saying that, you know, the reason this whole discussion is happening right now is I want people to understand that gambling is a coping mechanism, just like video games, just like Instagram,
materialism, just
like your baking, just like everything that you do to pass the time. It is a coping mechanism, and the reason why gambling and other addictions that are so dangerous is because they are the best form of escape. If you're ever looking to get away, like that is the easiest way to escape reality, is to go into these places. Now, the part where you're coming down, like the manic parts and like the happiness parts, like the parts where you're feeling success because you've won or whatever, they're not as easy to identify as when you're feeling down. Right. I didn't talk so much about the down parts because it's pretty obvious. When you lose, you will feel it. Like, there's no question about that. But the down part leads to a place of shame. It leads to a place of like regret. And so you start to hide things. You start to lie to people. You don't want to expose the truth as to what's actually happened. And so that feeling of when you really know that you've been hooked by the addiction, this is why I'm saying this. Like, there is no moment when you're going to recognize it. That's why I'm giving so much caution.
Yeah, it's so subtle.
Yeah, like, so, like, you know, can I tell somebody, hey, look out for this because you're going to fall into this trap?